Hey, how you doing? It's Lindsay here. So nice to see you. It's been a while, so I just thought I'd hop back in with some updates. So today what I want to talk about, and I don't really want to keep talking about it, but it's something that I've talked about up till now so much. So I just feel like I need to almost, I don't want to say close the chapter, but it does feel a bit like I'm closing the chapter. What I wanted to do today is to just kind of give you an update on the stages that I've found since going through my divorce, because it's now 2.5 years ago, and there was a lot of big changes that went on. So now I can look back over it and kind of see how it panned out. And the reason I want to do this episode is because I speak to midlife women all the time, and it's something that is kind of brewing as part of our awakening and our wanting to kind of, jump into freedom. And so I just wanted to share in hindsight what it looks like going backwards. Because as I say, when you're talking about finding your passion, your purpose, life leaves, life leaves breadcrumbs, but you can only see them looking back on them. You can't see them looking forward, because otherwise that would be really easy, wouldn't it? And you wouldn't learn the lessons. So it's the same for this. So I've kind of made a couple of notes of what it is. So I'm going to keep looking back at my notes. So first of all, and the more I looked into this, the more I realised that I probably should have done this before I got divorced. That might have been really helpful, because then I kind of knew what I was going into. Although, you know what, people tried to tell me, people tried to warn me what I might experience. And I remember even when somebody said to me, it'll take you about a year or two to bounce back. I was like, no way. I'll be running before that, and I'll be fine. And anyway, here we are, 2.5 years in. And I've just recently completely turned a corner. And there's been waves. And as I say, I'm going to break it down for you. So if you are either even contemplating it, this might be helpful for you, although you're probably still in the mindset of, no, it's got to be better, or I don't know, if you're open-minded enough to actually listen to these steps, hopefully they will be of some help. It's more likely to be helpful if you've just come out of it, or if you're partway through, because I think we all go through it. A bit like grief. It's very much like grief. We all go through sort of waves of it. And so I'm hoping that I can inspire you and show you that there really is light at the end of the tunnel. It's a bit like, when you're on the other side of the cliff, or the other side of the, the canyon, and you can shout back, you're going, it's really nice over here. And this is my experience, but it's also, almost like a common experience that I found through doing more research. In hindsight, oh, if only we could be so wise. Anyway, so the first stage is the whole of the shock and the emotional roller coaster of it all. And I was driven by emotion, absolutely driven by emotion. You've been thinking about it, you've been trying to pull all the pieces together, you've been trying to be logical, and ultimately you're trying to survive, actually, is what it comes down to. Whatever your individual or your personal circumstances with it, there can be so much, and that's a really, really personal thing. But basically that first initial bit, and I can't tell you how long or how short it lasts, because it's entirely dependent on the individual and your situation. But what I would suggest in that first stage is the best thing that you can do is accept help when it's offered to you, because take it, because you'll need it. Make sure that you're doing stuff to look after yourself and to really look after, like grounding your energy, making sure you're getting sleep, even though that can be challenging. You might want to be journaling, or alternatively, you might actually just need to be out in the forest or out by the water or whatever. Follow your intuition, because your intuition is guiding you to the path of healing. And depending on how long it's all been brewing and building up and all the rest of it, it's shock. That's what it is. Your whole body is in shock. Everything is in shock. So it's almost as if you're coming out after a big accident or a major accident. That's your body's going to react in the same way. So that's the very first stage. You're in shock, and even if for me, I was really, really lucky in the fact that I felt that I was so guided towards the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And I was, but then when I look back on it, then I realised where the shock really set in. Anyway, so that's the first part. Then moving on is actually finding out who you are. That's where your whole journey of rediscovery comes in, of who are you, what are you about, what do you want in your life, what's important to you. My whole life, or certainly my whole family life, family was my key primary value. It was what, as we all do, you put your time and energy into your family, into raising your kids, into being the best mum you can. So that's exactly what I had to start unraveling of, okay, well that's, and I guess it's the same also for any empty nester. That was so important to you, but it can't be your focus now, because otherwise how do you move on? So you got to kind of think, that's when it's really helpful to actually start rediscovering your passions. Doing the slightest things that may bring you joy, may bring you some fun. And you can start discovering what's important again to you and how that helps you to feel better, actually. Because I'd say that's one of your priorities. You do need to do stuff just to be nice to yourself and just to feel better. Because the thing is, you wouldn't be in this situation if you hadn't been through a certain amount of difficulty and emotional difficulty as well. There may well have been other sorts of difficulty in there, but ultimately you're coming out of that. So you do need to rebuild your self-identity, and don't rush it. Just let go of labels, let go of expectations, really start exploring your new interests, your passions, and ways to express yourself. The other thing that was really helpful to me was actually connecting with old friends, because after my divorce, I came back to England, and I connected with school friends, with university friends, with before marriage friends. And I cannot tell you how reassuring it was, because they remind you of who you are. And it's so important, because you've got to rebuild yourself as to find out, where you're going. And thing is, you'll hear about this as we go on, so much has changed, and you're going to find so many new qualities about yourself. But there is a part of you that needs to be loved and cared for and given the time to recover. So that's what I would say the second stage is, like rebuilding your self-identity. So the first stage, totally getting over the shock and the emotional sort of roller coaster of it all. Second stage is rebuilding your identity, and that can happen in tiny, tiny, tiny steps, and then you might make one leap forward and then tiny, tiny, tiny steps again, and it's all perfect as it is. So the third stage, I would say, is releasing emotional baggage. And it took me, even though I'm a coach and a healer, and so I was doing healing things all the time and working with my friends who were healers. And then after a year, I think I finished my shamanic training. So I was in a week's sort of immersive recovery, I guess, and healing. But it was just before that time that I actually reached out to a therapist, because I knew that there were certain things that I couldn't let go of, and they were showing up in an unhealthy way. And I'd done everything I knew how to do. And of course, as a therapist or as somebody in any sort of healing modality, if that's you, I guess it's anybody actually, you try to work with the tools that you have and with what you know how to do, and you use all the resources available to you. But at that stage, after about a year, I knew that I needed to speak to somebody professionally, because it wasn't fair now on my family and friends. if I was bringing stuff with me. And it wasn't as if I was, was breaking down and crying all over the place. And if you are, that's okay too, by the way. But there was certain stuff that it was too personal, it was too private. And because it was family and friends, there was no way I was going to go bad-mouthing anybody, because that wasn't the nature of well, it's not the nature of who I am, but it wasn't the nature of the relationship. That didn't need to happen, but I did need to unravel some of what had happened. And so I called on a therapist, and I had a couple of sessions with her. And she actually said, when I said, okay, I think that's good. And she actually said, I wouldn't normally let somebody go after just a couple of sessions. But she said, considering what you do and considering you're about to go into a week of healing, I think you're okay to do that. And those couple of sessions I had with her were so helpful. And so that's what I would say. You've got to really process the emotions so that you can move forward. So it's like, defragging your computer, I guess. You've got to do that. And after a certain amount of time, you'll start making new connections and being in new situations. And you'll have these little drops of realization of that you get to make your own decision, and maybe you've handled something differently, and that you're not maybe protecting somebody else in the process, because it's now down to you, because it's you, yourself and I, you, yourself and you. And that puts you in a really different position. And sometimes you have these realizations of, actually, I can do this. This is okay. We're all good. But I would really recommend that it's a really good idea to unravel some of your emotions and your feelings and your hang-ups and your fears about the future, because they'll come up too. Unravel that with a professional. And it doesn't matter who, whether it's, counsellor, coach, therapist, whatever. And I was doing Reiki and sound baths and meditations and all sorts of stuff, drumming circles. And although that was really helpful, it really was helpful, I knew there was some stuff that was like lodged in here that I needed to get out of my head, because it was affecting other things. And it was just time. I just knew it was time that I had to clear some of that out, and I didn't know the way to clear it out. So that was when I spoke to a therapist, really, really helpful, and got that done. So I'd highly, highly recommend doing that and actually speaking to somebody professionally, not just relying on family and friends, because I think that's really, really important. Because at the end of the day, you want to also build a future with your family and friends. So you can't just keep dragging your baggage along with you. So they're the first three stages. The fourth stage is creating a new vision for the future. So this might happen after some months, it might happen after some years, and it might be really like an ongoing long process. And if it is, that's okay, because it's such a personal thing, as I've said. Okay, so creating a vision for the future. So one of those things is, and I've had to make notes here so I could actually be logical about it, is shifting your loss to a possibility, shifting from loss to possibility. So rather than thinking what you've left behind, or what was, or what never actually materialized, everything that you'd hoped and dreamed, the things that hasn't materialized, you need to be able to then start making new dreams, because that's really, really important. Excuse me. Because you've got to be able to you've got to have a new dream. You've got to have your new life. You've got to have something to look forward to and a new sort of sun on the horizon. So shifting from loss to possibility, I think, was probably the best way to kind of label it to something. And then setting your own new goals for your personal growth and what you want to achieve. Now, my menopause kicked in right after my separation and just as I moved to England. So I'm still dealing with the sort of physical side. Again, I mean, all of this with the roller coaster embroiled in. And if you are let's say, you know, if you're a woman in your midlife and divorce has been one of your situations that you've had to deal with, on top of everything else, chances are you've been dealing with menopause or postmenopause or perimenopause. And let's throw that in there, shall we? Put it in the big mixing pot. So within that, I was managing sort of the stress side of things and the physical side of things. So I did go and get HRT because I really needed that to try and balance out the hot sweats, because then that was affecting my sleep and, you know, all the rest of it. But the other thing, obviously, is the weight gain. I've gained a fair amount of weight and it's a little bit dismal. And I also had to just let myself off the hook for that. And so when I'm talking about creating your new vision for your new future, there may well be things like that that's going on for you too. So number one advice is you've got to be gentle with yourself. Really, from my heart to yours, give yourself a break, seriously. The more you can start eating healthily and start re-nourishing your body, it's almost feeling like, as I say, it's that whole turning of the corner and it's that fresh start. And you will get many of them, because as you heal one layer and you grow into a next layer. So you kind of round that corner and you're like, okay, so coming into, right, I'm ready for this step now. And so when you're ready for that step, then you can start making goals for whether it's, you know, a weight loss journey, or you're making goals for changing your finances, or rebuilding your finances, or starting to buy your own house, or obviously it depends on, you know, how you finish the relationship. But there are certain things, and you think you want to get it all done right at the beginning, but quite frankly, you just can't. It's just too much. So you've got to kind of break it down. I mean, I've got countless notebooks. I've got my, I remember when I've looked back, and there were various different notebooks about, you know, the first things I need to do when I get to England. And literally within the first week, I'd probably done that huge checklist. And then there's about another 4 books after that of, okay, what's the next step and what's the next step? And it depends what you want to do. If you can just stroll straight into a job, then that's cool, because that's a step. Or if you're looking for a new job, then of course that's another step. It's just be prepared. What I want to say is just be prepared for new start after new start after new start. Because once you've kind of worked with all the healing and getting what needs to be behind you, then it becomes this whole thing about, okay, let's prepare for the future. What can my future look like? And that's when it's really important that I think that you really trust yourself, that you trust your intuition, that you're really gentle with yourself, and you can actually start to get really excited about a new future. Because you've got a new future ahead of you, and you may well want to find love again, and maybe a new career, and maybe a new location, and there's so many new options, and that's what's so exciting about part of this new beginning. But you have to take it in small steps, I believe. And also I'm sharing that with you because that's what I believe. I truly, as I said, I truly thought that I could jump in and make my new future and we'd all be good. And although, I mean, yeah, I made some huge steps, I also then took some fairly big steps backwards, and then a big step forwards, and then a bit of a step backwards, and sometimes a huge step backwards, actually. And there are times I really struggled, but call on friends and family, call on your connections, because they've got to remind you of who you really are, because sometimes you'll forget who you really are in the whole process. And if you need to call on extra help, do that too. If you need professional help, go and get that. There is no shame in that. There's enough people suffering with mental health without something as big as this coming along. But, you know, just, yeah, be gentle with yourself. So, and then the last one is thriving in your next chapter. So again, another corner turned. so exciting when you can actually start to wake up in the morning and go, oh my goodness, I'm so excited about today. You know, what is it? What have we got today? What am I going to do today? I've got, you know, I'm in my own house, and I've got my own income, and I'm fully financially self-supporting, and whatever else it might be, you know, I'm back to my proper weight. I'm looking forward to that one. Back to my proper weight, or a weight I'm happy with, etc., etc. It might be you found a new man, and all of these things can be so exciting. But don't expect them all to happen immediately because it can just be really challenging. Now, if lawyers are involved, now, thankfully, we didn't have to go down that road. If lawyers are involved, that may also drag things on. And even when you think you're making, because I've heard a lot of people say this, they really think they're getting ahead and they really think that they're moving on. And then suddenly they'll get something from the lawyer, and the lawyer's like, oh, you know, there's a thing that needs to be done, or some dirt that needs to be dug up, or whatever. Even if you've got that situation, make sure that you're giving yourself the recovery time you need, because that's part of midlife as well. We all seem to think that we can just go from, you know, project to project to project to project. But the thing about this is, you're not a project. You're really not. You're more than that. You are the whole project, and nothing else can function and nothing else can work unless you really appreciate how important you are now. You are the center of your world, and there is nobody that's more important. And even when kids are involved, there is nobody that's more important for you to focus on getting back on track. Because once you're back on track, then you can also help everybody else, if that's the situation you need to be in. But and the reason I'm making this is because, I mean, I talked about this with a friend, and I went, I just don't want to keep talking about divorce. You know, that's not the energy that I want to share with the world. And yet it's been such a massive defining thing for me. Excuse me. It's been such a defining step in my journey that I think, because I have shared it a little bit along the way, bits have crept out, although most of it I've just tried to keep quiet because, as I say, I just don't want to keep talking about it. I feel now that it's closed, and I am now the person that I didn't even know that I could be, but I feel like I've moved on enough that I'm really proud of who I am now and who I've become through all of it. So that's how I can kind of shine a light on it. Because as I say, when a friend and I were talking about it, and she's also an entrepreneur, and she's also been through a divorce, and we talked about it, and she said, yeah, it's a really heavy energy. And I said, yeah, it really is. It's nothing that I need to labour, but today I can shine light on it. And I've done so much work on becoming who I am, actually, and being really proud of who I am and what I've done and what I've achieved, and learning to congratulate myself for that I want to share this with you. So wherever you are in the process, or even if it's looming for you, or if you fear that might be the case, because I wouldn't wish it on anybody, got to be honest with you. I would not wish it on anybody. And also, it is the best situation for certain people. And no judgment. For me, there is no judgment with divorce, you being left or you leaving, no judgment, other than you've got to just figure out what's right for you and make those moves. And don't be surprised if the journey is a lot more than you thought, and if it's it makes you dig deep. I think that's really what I want to say about it. It makes you dig deep into who you are. Now, with any sort of healing, the deeper that you go down, I feel actually the stronger your foundations become. And I've been listening to stuff constantly for the last 2.5 years to make sure my head was in the right place. So those are kind of the emotional, I'd say the 5 emotional steps. The really practical steps that I took, which I do believe have really helped me, especially because of menopause as well, as I said, I started Nordic pole walking because I couldn't run anymore because my body hurt too much. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't bear the thought going to the gym because I was having hot sweats all the time. But so what I did do is the moment I woke up, literally as soon as I could, I hopped out of bed, or groaned out of bed as the case may be, and just put on walking gear and I got out walking with Nordic poles. The reason I did Nordic pole walking is because it's a little bit more intensive than just walking, but it allowed me to get outside. So there's all of the benefits of having the sunlight on your face as soon as you wake up, or even fresh air on your face if it's a dark winter morning. But getting out and getting that fresh air has been an absolute essential through the entire time. I still do it every day now. But that was something that I started even before we sort of made the split, because something needed to keep me from spiraling into, blame, guilt, misery, fear, all of those places that you just don't want to go. So walking was one of the things that really helped me. It's probably also really helped with my hormones. When I happen to be out walking, I actually have met new friends. And the new friends, because obviously I moved to a new place, didn't know anybody. And I think that's one of the other things that breaks down is the social. Because it's like, his friends, your friends, who stays, who goes, family, who stays, who goes, all the rest of it. Anyway, so I made some completely new friends through walking in the morning, and I am so grateful for those friends. And I don't know if they'll ever know actually how grateful I am for them, but they really, really helped me just to feel like there was some normality going on some days. So that's one of the practical things that I'd really recommend. Make sure you're looking after your diet, because your emotions may well be spiraling. And if you throw menopause in there as well, oh, what a lovely cocktail that is. Sometimes, especially if kids are involved, you're going to have your healing to do, and they've got theirs to process too. What I found to be really helpful is sometimes everybody just needs space. There's a lot of ums in this one today, and I'm sorry about that, but it's not a light, cheery topic. It's an earthy, grounding reality topic, and it happens to a huge percentage of the population, and it involves so many people. So sometimes you do just need to have space. I really had to give my older sons space, and even though they're on the other side of the Atlantic, I yearned to speak to them when they didn't necessarily really want to speak to me, and I had to respect that. And it wasn't falling out or anything like that, but I just picked up the signs that actually they need to do things in their own way, and they need to know that I'm still there for them, but it needs to happen at their pace. So that's the thing, you've got to be really respectful of other people, because they're also healing, and put your boundaries in place as well, so you can be respectful for your healing and give yourself the time and the space and the energy and the focus that you need for your healing. Because ultimately you're the one who's got to walk on with the rest of your life, and you can't be carrying this with you for the rest of your life as baggage, because quite frankly, what's the point? Life is too short for that. If you've made the decision, or if the decision's been made for you, just allow yourself to move on. You've got a whole new future ahead of you, and it's something to look forward to. It could be so exciting, but it can't come with the veil of this is what happened and this is going to define me. It's happened, okay? Accept that it will take healing, it will take time, it will take work. And you might get reminders, of course you're going to get reminders over the years. It might be you've got kids' weddings ahead of you. It might be you've got kids' graduations ahead of you. Whichever it is, But you need to be as clear as you possibly can be so you can deal with all of those situations, and whatever comes up, that you feel you can be as clear in your emotions as possible so you can still show up to be the fantastic woman that you are. Because there is life beyond. There are some really good channels on or pages, shall I say, on Instagram of women post-divorce, and there are also some really good divorce lawyers, planners, and they will help you to, well, think about stuff beforehand, but they'll also help you to manage stuff afterwards. So call on those. You might not follow those pages forevermore, but if and when you need them, those pages are there for you, if that's what you need. So I don't really want to keep going on in too much detail, because I kind of feel like I've covered the stages, the textbook stages that you can go through, and then some of the more practical tools. I really dived into my spirituality because I felt that I needed to. I really dived into all of the natural healing because that was a very gentle way of doing it. And I could go to a sound bath or a gong bath, and if you don't know what that is, it's like a meditation circle, and then somebody has either a big gong or drums or whatever, and basically you lie down in meditation, and then they can come round and they help to move the energy. And I mean, I've sobbed my way through a few of those. I've snored my way through a few of them, but things like that just will help you to process the energy that's like really deep inside, that you can't even access it through talk therapy, but some of that, it will really help to clean your energy and to help you move forward. And you'll probably come out feeling exhausted, but you may also, a few days afterwards, start to feel lighter. And so things like that, call in all of those. Aromatherapy, homeopathy. I worked with a homeopath as well. That was really helpful. For me, I worked with the horses as well, and the horses really helped me to heal my energy. So to spend time with pets, anything like that, call in all the healing modalities you can, because I would sooner explore all of those than somebody, just give you a tablet. Because at the end of the day, if you're just on a tablet, although it may well be like a Band-Aid, and again, no judgment, if that's the route and that's what you need, then do that. The difference is you're not dealing with any of the emotions. Whereas if you go through some of the natural processes and you go through some of sort of like the support that's out there, you seem to process the information and move through the information, move through the feelings, and so you know that they're clear. Because unless you experience them, it's like any feelings, unless you experience them, you can't come out of the other side. Because no feeling, if you actually deal with it, no feeling is going to stay around forever. No anger, no sadness, no fear, no bitterness, none of it is going to stay around forever if you actually face it and address it. Whereas if you just try and suppress it, then that's when it plays out in the future, and that's when it starts to really wreak havoc. Wreak havoc, is that the expression? Starts to really wreak havoc on trying to create a new future. So definitely, deal with the emotions and get all the healing support that you possibly can, and also community and that sort of thing. And there's also an element of kind of give yourself a deadline. When you realise it's the timer on this is 33:33, which I just think's lovely and very synchronistic. So I am going to wrap it up right now. But what I would love to do is just to share a card with you, because cards have really helped me to feel supported, feel seen, feel reassured. So let me just pull one card of the angels, gods and goddesses for you, and let's see if something illuminating comes up. Let me turn them that way, and then I can't see who's looking at me. Can't see which angels are looking at me. Right, way, there we go. Who have we got? Okay, we've got the angel of psychic ability, and we've got the goddess of the unknown. which you're going to love the reading on that. The Goddess of the Unknown is a new chapter of your life is around the corner. Remove fear and embrace the unknown. Okay, so I think that is the perfect card for us. And then this other one is just the angel of psychic abilities. Your intuitive and psychic abilities are very strong at the moment. So if this speaks to you, and if you're still with me, this probably does speak to you, trust your intuition. Always trust your intuition. And especially as you're going through healing, trust your intuition and know that you're not going to know the steps. And that's okay, because you don't need to know the steps. I've kind of given you an outline of what to expect if you're in, if you're in that position. But it's an individual journey for all of us, okay? And if you can get through this way quicker than I did, you know, kind of fantastic, and kind of it's all a personal journey. Anyway, look, I really hope that's helpful. If you've got any thoughts about your journey or any questions about what's happening with you, feel free to email me directly. It's lindsay.deswart@gmail.com, or you can message me through YouTube or on Instagram. And my new page is I am Lindsay Deswart. So please reach out to me, because I am here to help. I do feel like I'm on the other side of it now, and I feel like, you know, the wounds have healed and the light is shining and we're good to go. So I'd love to be able to help you too. Okay, take care. Lots of love. Bye.